Are you struggling to come up with original content week in and week out? Start a podcast. Interview your ideal clients, let them talk about what they care about most, and never run out of content ideas again. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. This episode is sponsored by Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. Today we're joined by Rafael Marrero. Rafael is the president and CEO of Rafael Marrero and Company. Rafael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jonathan.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show today. We've definitely been trying to get you on the show for a little while now, and we're going to be talking about something very, very unique. I don't think I've ever once talked to a guest about growing your business via the federal government contracting, which I think is going to be a very unique topic. But of course, Rafael, before we get into today's topic, maybe you can tell our listeners a little about what you and your team are up to these days.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, thank you once again for the opportunity to address your audience in this prestigious show. My firm is an Inc. 500 honoree. We're actually a two-time Inc. 500 honoree by Inc. magazine. And we basically help other veteran-owned, minority, women, and small businesses break into the $500 billion federal marketplace. And we do this by helping them with SBA or Small Business Administration certifications, small business certifications, GSA schedules, and with marketing assistance.
Yeah, and I know that I know that your company is growing quickly. I know that you and your team are doing some fantastic work with minority groups. So, again, one of the reasons that we are so delighted to have you on the show today, talking about this area of expertise that you have in growing your business via federal government contracting. So we discussed a little bit offline just before we got started, Rafael. We're going to start off by talking about that. I mean, this idea, this is what you said, that the government, U.S. government, is the world's richest client. So what are we talking about with that?
We're talking about a client that spends approximately $500 million per hour, every hour of the day, 365 days of the year. It has, of that money, it has earmarked about $3.9 trillion for its operating budget as a government, which is about 25% of our gross domestic product. Think about that for a second. Almost 25% of our gross domestic product is consumed by the world's richest customer, which is the U.S. federal government. So for our audience right now that's listening, they're probably saying, well, how can I do business and why am I not doing business with this great customer? And quite frankly, it's the United States federal government is perhaps a little daunting to some at first glance, but there are special programs that are reserved for small businesses. And that's why we've successfully grown in this niche by helping small businesses grow with federal government contracting opportunities.
Yeah, this is exactly what you do. And so speaking of it being daunting, but helping your clients, I mean, you have mentioned sort of point number 2, that there are, like you said, specific programs for small businesses. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so one of the interesting things is, Jonathan, less than 0.5% of all companies in America that are qualified to do so are actually doing business with the federal government. And that's ironic. So I'm going to say that again. It's less than 0.5% of all businesses across the nation. And it's a shame because there are federal laws that stipulate that 23 cents on the dollar must be spent with small businesses that are American small businesses, right? So if we were to look at this, so 23 cents on the dollar is set aside for small business procurement. That means that every small business in our community, the guy that puts together furniture, that delivers fertilizer, that grows flowers, that does furniture, that paints buildings, each and every one of these trades, there are opportunities for each and every one of these small businesses with the U.S. government because the government actually purchases 11 million categories in goods and services across the land from different companies. So if chances are that if you have a product right now, the U.S. government is buying it, they're just not buying it from you. So it's time to pick up the phone or go on the internet and do a little bit of research to get your ducks in a row, like we say.
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, research is a great place to start off. And you had talked about what a ridiculously small percentage of business owners are sort of taking advantage of. As you said, the world's richest client. Rafael, do you have maybe a couple of pieces of advice for any business owners that are listening, thinking to themselves, well, I would like to take advantage of this opportunity, but like you said, it is daunting. Where would just be a good place to start? Just start thinking about, is this something that I can take advantage of?
Sure. So one of the first things that they should do is they need to get registered in the System for Acquisition Management, or what's known as SAM, to become an approved vendor for the U.S. government. That's step number one. And once you are registered as an approved vendor for the federal government in the System for Acquisition Management, you have to select what's known as your industry NAICS codes, your industry codes for the types of products and services that you offer. So you would have to basically map your products and services using and referencing this North American Industrial Classification System code, map your offerings to this database and select the right codes so that when the government is looking for a buyer for a seller of products and services in your category, your firm shows up appropriately. So it will take a little bit of research, getting registered with SAM, and then the next step would be setting up a free, no obligation consultation with us, and we will be glad to provide a free 30-minute consultation to anyone. And it's not a high pressure sales or gimmick or anything like that. We actually truthfully answer all questions provided by our listeners. We engage with them, we answer their questions, and let them know the best way to move forward and the path forward in government contracting.
All right, today's growth story is about search engine marketing. Clear Company is an HR tech company that was doing a lot of things right. Their messaging was clear, their product produced incredible results, but they were struggling to drive qualified traffic to their website. Then they found Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency. Within the first 12 months of working with Directive, Clear Company was able to increase their qualified lead volume by 157%. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
Rafael, there's probably a couple of people thinking to themselves right now, okay, what is the other side of the equation? Are there any pitfalls to be thinking about taking advantage of this opportunity? Are there any sort of roadblocks that business owners should be on the lookout for?
Well, it's not necessarily a roadblock per se. There are barriers to entry. Part of it is it's a whole new language. When you're dealing with the government, there's a language that you need to learn. There are a lot of acronyms and a lot of there's this whole new vocabulary. Some people call it governese. I call it government lingo, if you will, because there are a lot of acronyms and there are new sets of laws that you must become familiar with, such as the Federal Acquisition Regulations, the FAR, and Small Business Contracting Guidelines. So there is a substantial amount of paperwork and learning to be had before you can successfully penetrate the market. However, there are also centers dedicated to providing free assistance that are funded by the Small Business Administration. So research is going to play a key role in this whole process and learning this new language. The other thing you must consider is whether or not government contracting is for you. You need to take into account what your financial situation looks like, and you're entering a whole new market. So it's good to have a solid financial scenario where you are financially literate and understand the basics of running and managing a business. You're moving into uncharted waters, so to speak. It's a new client, so it can be somewhat daunting and a little intimidating at first. So going back to the question of research, learning the new language, the new rules of engagement, and becoming one with this whole new customer that has a set of whole new needs that you've never spoken to. So there is going to be some ramp up involved. Now, from a financial standpoint, I will say that doing business with the federal government is perhaps one of the best things that can happen to small business, because contrary to the private sector, if you fill out your paperwork on time and you submit it appropriately, the government will pay within net 30 days, which is not the case as in the private sector, especially in construction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so definitely a lot of benefits to be had. Rafael, you've done some incredible work helping, I know, veteran-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, female-led businesses. You've helped people grow their business, achieve their own dreams. This is a question we've been asking a lot of our guests on the show. I'm excited to hear your answer. But what kind of legacy, Rafael, are you hoping to leave behind? Whether that is personally, professionally, or even a combination of the two.
That's a great question. And I think that we're the byproduct of our actions and our deeds. One of the things that I would like to do is part of the legacy that I would like to leave is I would like to help build the strongest minority-owned, Hispanic-owned management consulting firm in the United States, helping other veterans, helping other women-owned businesses, and helping these companies successfully gain traction in the federal government. We would like to be known for the results that we've generated and let those results speak for themselves. One of the things, Jonathan, that I'm very proud of is we have a client by the name of Miguel Lopez. Miguel Lopez is an asphalt and pavement contracting company. The name of the firm is Miguel Lopez Jr. Inc. And they entered this new program called the SBA's 8, like the number 8 and the letter A, 8A program. Well, they've been in business for 30 years. And the client recently wrote a letter that really touched my heart. He said to the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce that he was very fortunate to have met with us and have met us 2 years ago because they've grown more in the last 2 years as a company than they had in the previous 28 years of doing business. So they've gone from a $7 million a year to a $20 million operation in 2 years.
Wow.
And they are now poised for significant growth. And again, results vary according to your level of effort and the level of commitment that you're willing to put into this. But the fact remains is this is a great market to enter. And those who are willing to roll up their sleeves and work hard can actually substantially grow their businesses via federal government contracting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, and I certainly know that your company has grown aggressively, and that has allowed you to help and touch more businesses as a result of that. So certainly we wish you continued success. Again, we've been talking with Rafael Marrero. Rafael, if any of our listeners, they're interested in following up, they want to know more about today's episode, they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to go about doing that?
Well, the best way to reach us is they can call my company number, toll free 888-595-6221. And then you can dial extension 700, which is my direct line. You can also press 0, speak to the operator, and ask them to refer you to my office. Or they can email me at Rafael, that's Rafael, at RafaelMarrero.com.
Perfect. Well, Rafael, thank you again so much for taking some time out of your schedule. It was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Pleasure is all ours. Thank you so much for the opportunity to bring this great market to the attention of your listeners.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.